Hello everyone! As per the title, today we're going to be building my dream custom gaming PC in collaboration with HYTE brand.
Now I know some of you guys are going to say, Zoe, you literally stream and you game. Don't you already have a gaming PC? And that is where I say kinda. This PC I currently have is an amalgamation of Brandon's old components from his old gaming PC and some upgraded components, but the majority of these are over a decade years old, which does not stand up to par with today's gaming standards.
I just got done banging on my PC because my fan's rattling so loud. I caught it rattling. You hear that? If it's loose or if it's broken or what of an ancient artifact computer. We really need an upgrade. That's some Indiana Jones lost national treasure ass old computer.
So when I say that this is my first PC build, that might be a little clickbaity. I'm not unfamiliar to computers. In past times, I've second-handedly helped my dad with some of his builds, and I've even helped Brandon with this past build. This is just the first time that I actually take the reins and build myself my own PC from scratch. And that's when I should bring up my collaborator today, HYTE brand. They sent me their Y70 Touch chassis, and that's what I'm going to be building it.
HYTE's Y70 Touch is a dual-chamber mid-tower chassis that is their reimagined version of their Y60, but this comes with a fully functional touchscreen display in the middle of the case, which has revolutionized the tech industry this far.
But with every great build comes a lot of research, so let's enter the research portion of this video.
We interrupt this program to bring you my PC component notes. I need to make this disclaimer before the tech bros and the English majors rally their torches and pitchforks to come for me. There's gonna be spelling errors on my slides. There's gonna be computer anatomy doodle errors on my slides. These were my quick personal notes I jotted down while building my PC and spitballed and summarized back into a little notes section of this video. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I never claimed to be a professional, but I think I did a pretty good job in summarizing computer components in a digestible way for you guys. So let's get into this. Before you even look into components for your computer, you need to have at least a blueprint of what your goals are for your PC. My personal goals for this PC are that it'll have enough storage for editing photos and videos such as this one. I need a lot of space for YouTube, enough speed and good graphics for gaming and streaming to multiple platforms. Recently I've been trying to stream to TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch at the same time on my older PC, and my PC has been really lagging and struggling to keep up. And then of course, aesthetic for PC content. You gotta have a pretty PC if it's gonna be put all over Instagram. It's gotta look gorgeous. You guys know I have a very pink and black spooky cute style, and of course my PC is going to reflect that. Not everyone's gonna have the same goals as each other, and not every PC is built the same. For example, if you are just a student who needs access to Google applications such as like Google Drive and Gmail and documents and Excel, whatever you need, you're not going to need as beefy as a computer as a competitive gamer or a streamer or somebody who needs to work on 3D models. So keeping in mind of your goals, you can set up a blueprint of what components you want out of a PC. And now that we have our goals set for our PC, let's start breaking it down component by component, starting with the component that houses all of our components, the case, or some people refer to it as the chassis. That's where our collaborator comes in today. HYTE brand sent me their new Y70 Touch case, and I am so excited to get this put together. So I'm not going to say too much about cases in this note section because I feel like it's going to spoil the surprise of the actual build. So let's move on to the inside. Arguably one of your most important components is going to be your motherboard. Your motherboard is going to be the main circuit board that connects all of your components to the processor. The motherboard kind of acts as a nervous system to a PC by channeling signal pathways for components to communicate to each other. And aside from that, it also distributes electricity from the power supply to the rest of your components. And my little tidbit for when you're researching to buy a motherboard, be mindful of compatibility to components and case size. Not all motherboards will fit in every case, and not all components will be compatible with said motherboard, so just be mindful of your compatibility. This is where websites like PC Part Picker will be your best friend, because if you have two incompatible parts in your cart, it'll tell you straight out the gate that they're incompatible and direct you towards parts that are compatible. It's a great resource and will save you a lot of time. Now let's move on from the nervous system of our PC to the brain, the CPU. Your central processing unit is the brain of your PC and is responsible for managing the instructions of computer programs that tell your PC which data to process, how to process input, store data, and output results. CPUs run at really high temps and are cooled by their own personal attached cooling system, but you're not limited to that stock cooler. I've seen a lot of people do some sick custom cooling, but that's a video for another day. My tip for you with CPUs is when you're researching the CPU you want to purchase, be mindful to select one that aligns with your GPU's performance level to prevent bottlenecking. And bottlenecking is when, say you have a super beefed up macho graphics card, but a kind of old CPU, you're going to experience bottlenecking where they aren't compatible. They're not working to their best potential because they're so far and so different in their needs. And be mindful that my doodle right there is a CPU cooler, whereas I actually dedicate an entire slide next to the processing chip itself, the processor that is the actual CPU, whereas this is just the cooler I drew. The actual CPU would be underneath that little bat drawing right there. I want to talk a tiny bit more about processor chips. They are quite literally the brain of your PC, so I feel like they deserve two slides. Like I said, processor chips run at really high temps, so they're located underneath the CPU cooler connected to your motherboard. You buy your CPU cooler and your processor chip individually, although they do go together to create your CPU. So my little tip for when you're buying a processor chip is when you're researching on what processor to buy, be mindful that your processor needs to be compatible with your components and your PC's needs. For example, two major brands are AMD versus Intel. Make sure that your processor chip is going to be compatible with your other components. And if you're lost, this would be another great time to resource PC Part Picker or even Reddit. There's a ton of people in the tech community on Reddit who would love to help you, so never feel too afraid to ask. Moving on from our CPU and processor, let's move to graphics card. A display card, a GPU, a graphics card, they all mean the same thing, graphics processing unit. A GPU is an electronic circuit computer chip responsible for handling the visual elements on your display, so what you see on your monitors. A graphics card performs rapid speed mathematical calculations for computing graphics intensive tasks. Some graphics intensive tasks include gaming at maximum capability, editing video, or 3D modeling. And my tidbit is, people with those goals in particular should really prioritize research on a good graphics card. You may want to invest in a more expensive graphics card than, say, an author who just wants to use their computer for typing. Like I said, it all ties back to those goals we made at the beginning. Graphics card will have you on good visual effects, but what about wanting your computer to run fast? Let's talk about RAM. RAM stands for Random Access Memory. The RAM in your computer is your computer's short-term memory, stored in a temporary memory bank. Your RAM offers rapid fast data access made for running the processes, applications, and programs you're currently using on your computer, such as retrieving the data you use to surf web browsers. The more RAM your PC has, the faster your PC will run. Average, they usually have anywhere from 4 to 32 gigabytes. 4 is a very, very low amount of RAM, which would ideally be in a laptop. But if you plan more strenuous applications such as video editing, 3D design, programming, streaming, video, whatever you gotta do, you should opt for more RAM, like 32 gigabytes. I personally have 32 gigabytes. It'll just make your PC run a lot better. But like I said, that's just your computer's short-term memory it uses for working on the applications you are currently using. This is not your computer's long-term memory. That is your computer's storage. Your PC's storage is where all the files that you want to save permanently are located, whereas more temporary storage is stored with your RAM. When saving a file to your PC, the data is copied from your temporary storage, your RAM, the memory, onto your storage drive. If you're planning to work with large files such as video editing, 3D modeling, programming, you should invest in enough storage to store all your projects. My little tidbit for this is hard drives are now considered ancient technology, so it's definitely more recommended to put your main storage on an M.2 or a solid state drive, SSD. If you're on a budget and still want fast boot up speeds, I would recommend a 128 gigabyte to 256 gigabyte SSD. Prioritizing your storage is important. You want to make sure you have enough space, and as you run out of space, if you don't have enough, it will affect affect how your computer runs in the long run. And now that you have all these components running off of your motherboard, you should prioritize keeping your computer cool and making it look cool while you're at it with fans and fan covers, am I right? Sorry, that was a little corny. I just really didn't know how to give fans its own entire section, so I'm grouping it with accessories, and it kind of goes with it. Fans are very aesthetically pleasing. There's a bunch of different sizes from 140mm to 120mm, all different shapes and styles and colors. Go buck wild. It's your PC and you're allowed to personalize it to however you want. Which brings me to my collaboration with my boyfriend. My boyfriend Brandon is pretty handy with 3D printer, and he always helps my creative ideas come into fruition, bringing us these spiderweb heart fan covers, which are gonna look really, really nice in my build. And if you're interested in buying some spiderweb heart covers yourself for your PC, stay until the end where I'm gonna drop some info on how you can get them. But fans are very important in the aesthetics of your computer. I did say in my goals that I wanted my computer to be aesthetically pleasing for content, so I'm gonna make it happen with some NZXT fans and some really cool custom fan covers. But other things you can do is you can get pin cables that come in all different colors. Be careful buying brands that you're not completely sure about, but personally for my setup, I bought some RGB Lee cables. Lee is a well-reputable brand. I've seen people use these cables all the time, and I think they're gorgeous. You can customize them to whatever you want, so that's perfect. People underestimate the power of some electrical tape. I ordered some pink electrical tape that I'm going to be using on just random things around my gaming setup. We'll see towards the end. And yeah, just get some cute electrical tape. You never know when it'll come in handy. Now, I know some of you guys are giving me the bombastic side eye when it comes to the medical tape in here, and like, girl, what are you going to use medical tape for on a PC? And that's where I say wait for the build section to find out, because I think you guys are going to think it's really cool. And lastly, in little accessories, this is one that I highly recommend, but an electrical screwdriver, because you're going to be screwing in a lot of things into your PC case, which can be really tiring on your wrist. So an electrical screwdriver is going to save you a lot of time, and I just found this one on Amazon. And now we've had our fun with our little accessories bit, but we need to get back to seriousness and talk about the last component that powers it all, our PSU, power supply unit, or just power supply. A power supply is the hardware component that acts as the main source of electricity that is used to power all of the components in your PC. A power supply works by converting alternating current electricity to lower voltage direct current power and regulates all of the electrical currents going to your internal component. Basically, my biggest advice for you, and I cannot stress this enough, is when you're researching to buy a power supply for your PC, do not by any means cheap out. Stick to reputable name brand power supplies, or you run the risk of frying your motherboard and all of your other components. Yes, if you go with that Temu power supply for 20 bucks, it'll fry your motherboard and kill hundreds of dollars worth of components that you just bought. Don't do it. I can't express it enough. This is the one thing that you really need to have intention behind. Do not cheap out on your power supply. To sum up this PC components notes section, I want to do a reflection on what we learned. We first learned what a motherboard is and does, how a processing chip and a CPU cooler work hand in hand, how a graphics card is integral to your display, and how there's a difference between RAM and storage. Then we learned how fans can make your computer look super dope, and how a name brand power supply can power it all. With this information, I will still say, everybody do your own research. Be cautious before you buy something that costs hundreds of dollars, and every amount of research is not research wasted. I will be including in the description a bunch of sources that helped me make this video personally, anywhere from PC Part Picker to Linus Tech Tips to this one account I found on Instagram called SkyTech Gaming, where this girl named Kelsey does a lot of rundowns on PC components and how they work, and she beautifully articulates stuff to where they just make sense. This is kind of my beginner's guide as a beginner for myself that I used when building my PC, and I hope it can help you guys, but I know I'm not the best at describing everything, so I'll be linking some sources down in the description. The more you learn is always better, and I always want to inquire everyone to do their own research as well. Now let's get into what you guys mainly are here for, the PC build, which I'm all the more excited for myself.
So now that we have our chassis unboxed, we're going to be moving to our first component, which is our motherboard. Today we have with us the MSI B550 Gaming Plus AMD motherboard.
I chose this motherboard because it's a good mid-tier motherboard. It's not going to break the bank, but at the same time has a lot of the same features as some of the higher end competitor motherboards, such as USB-C compatibility and space for a second M.2 drive if in the future I was ever to decide to expand my storage. I can completely do that with this motherboard. This motherboard also has a PCIe 4.0 slot in case I ever wanted to upgrade my graphics card.
First thing we're going to put in that motherboard is going to be our processor chip. So today we have the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X.
I chose this specific processor because it's a good mid-tier processor. It's the best bang for its buck for my specific PC goal. Installation's fairly simple. You start by lifting the latch on your motherboard and then very carefully taking your processor chip out of its packaging, being sure not to press or mess with any of the pins along the bottom. There should be a triangle on one of the corners of your processor chip, which should match the triangle on your motherboard. You pop that down into its spot and then press the latch down to ensure a good connection from your processor chip to your motherboard.
The next thing to go into your motherboard will be your memory. So I have 32 gigabytes of this Corsair Dominator Platinum RGB RAM, and it's gonna look really sick.
I just chose this RAM because it looked cool. Not everything needs a super specific reason. It's 32 gigabytes and compatible with my motherboard, which is important. Just make sure your RAM's compatible to your motherboard, and when it comes to installation, make sure your pins are lined up perfect and push firmly. If it feels like you're gonna break your motherboard, you're doing it right. Installing your RAM is always gonna be stiffer than you expect, so make sure you're pressing pretty firmly.
So now that we've installed our memory, we need to install our storage. So I have this Western Digital Black 2TB M.2 that I'm going to be installing into the motherboard.
Installation's super simple. Of course, you start by taking it out of this packaging. You're going to notice that I'm not using my electrical screwdriver for directly on the motherboard. I just really didn't want to run the risk of shocking my motherboard, and that's also why Brandon made me wear this stupid grounding bracelet you're going to see throughout it. A grounding bracelet does as the name implies. It grounds you to prevent any accidental shocks to your motherboard to protect your components while you're working directly on it. All you have to do to install your storage is remove the original cover, plug your storage into its port and screw it on the side, remove the film on the cover originally, and reinstall the cover back on. Like I said in the notes section, hard drives are kind of considered desolate technology now. I would definitely recommend going for an M.2 if you want faster boot up and transfer speeds. We've completed our work outside of the case. Let's get this motherboard installed into the Y70 Touch. I'm being really careful and mindful of lining up the screw holes on my motherboard with the screw holes on my case. Now this part's a little time consuming and annoying, but going around your motherboard and hand screwing in each screw, I'm just being cautious of not using my electrical screwdriver right now directly on my motherboard. It was more of a rather be safe than sorry type situation, and trust that the electrical screwdriver comes in clutch, especially when it comes to my RGB fans.
And now that your motherboard is installed into your case, we're going to move on to installing our CPU cooler. Today I have the NZXT Kraken 360 RGB CPU cooler, and let's get her inside.
NZXT is a well-reputable brand, and this is a good CPU. You could even say it's a little overboard with the 3 fans. I personally bought it for the aesthetic, but when I originally purchased this, I was under the impression that the LCD panel on the CPU actually filled up the entire panel, and it does not, unfortunately. You'll see what I mean at the end. When it comes to installation, you're going to want to make sure that you have the correct CPU bracket to correspond to your CPU socket. For example, my personal CPU is an AM4 socket, so I need to make sure that the bracket matches that. There should be an instructional guide that comes with your CPU, just follow that. And with your bracket adjusted, now you can screw in your CPU. My best advice to you doing this is to make sure that each screw has around the same amount of pressure. You wouldn't want one screw on one side to be super tight and another screw to be super loose. Ensuring the best connection means that you should have all the screws around the same amount of pressure. Now, like I said before, 3 fans on a cooler is a little excessive, but it does look phenomenal when it's top mounted in this Y70 case. And the Y70 case makes fan installation super easy, being that it already has built-in screw holes for your radiator and fans and channels for the wires to go out the back of the case really seamlessly. Although personally I opted to move my radiator and fans a little bit more forward, and I'll tell you why later.
With that CPU cooler inside, we're going to install our power supply. I just went with this MSI 1000 watt power supply.
I got an 1000 watt power supply to future-proof my PC in case I were to upgrade parts that demanded more power, but I'm not putting my computer through 1000 watts worth of stuff. I had forgot to mention, but off camera we removed the back panel of the PC case to access behind the motherboard. There's a compartment behind your motherboard, and that is where your power supply is flipped on its side and installed directly into your case. I would say this is a really easy installation, and once you're screwed in and your covers are back on, we're going to worry about plugging this into your component. Now your power supply is already going to come with more cables than you're probably ever going to need, but I'm extra. So I got these Lee & Lee Strimer Plus V2 cable extenders. They just attach to your cable, and then from your cable to, say, your graphics card or directly to your motherboard, and they're RGB, so they light up. Yeah, that's why I got them. And similar to the RAM, when you're plugging these hose in, plug them in firmly. The black electrical tape is fully optional. I just hate the white cables on this, so I'm covering them. And while we're here, we're gonna reinstall the bracket that holds up our GPU. Close up, but aren't these cable channels so cool? All my cables just go down into that.
Now before we install our graphics card, I just want to take the time to go in and install all the fans that we need while we still have room inside this case. I went with these NZXT F120 RGB core fans to match my CPU cooler.
Unfortunately, these specific NZXT fans are not daisy chainable, which means every so many fans will be controlled by an RGB controller hub. On top of that, my motherboard doesn't even have enough ports to support all of these fans. That is where I'd recommend getting an external USB 2 splitter. No need to overcomplicate this is just the computer's version of an extension cable and a power strip for extra plugins. But before we even have to worry about that, we get to make our fans look super cool with these custom fan covers I made with my boyfriend. With some extra screws we had, we just screw them into the fronts of our fans, super simple, and they turned out so awesome. I'm gonna make a couple versions of this, but they will be available for sale on my website, www.vampiredoll.com. Yes, there's a 4 in that. And remember when I said I pushed my radiator and my fans for my CPU cooler more forward than I should have? This is why. Taking inspiration from Reddit user The Kits build, they found if you moved your radiator and your fans slightly forward, you have just enough space to fit 2 120 fans in the back, which isn't necessarily what this case is made for, but gosh, it looks great. So other than me shoving a fan where a fan's not supposed to go, this case makes fan installation so insanely easy with those back channels and screw holes. But with how many RGB fans there are, there's going to be a lot of cable management out that back. But I'm not going to worry about cable management until the very end.
So now let's go in and vertically mount my graphics card. We're going in today with this GeForce RTX 4060 Ti.
I'm really fortunate to be doing my rebuild at a time where the market for graphics cards has kind of leveled out again, so I really didn't have to break the bank for a graphics card, a 4060 Ti that's going to be able to handle whatever I throw at it, whether it be gaming, streaming, 3D stuff, Photoshop, Premiere, it's going to be able to handle it. Get ready for the least satisfying film peel you'll ever see in your entire life. This was not no thick, nice film that peels off all in one piece. No, this was more like saran wrap, so it was sticking to the GPU and pulling and tearing and just being nasty. I just wanted to get it off to install the damn thing. In the Y60 and Y70 cases, it's mandatory that you vertically mount your GPU, which is a really easy installation. You just plug it in along the bottom and screw it into the side of your case. Theoretically, I could have used my last graphics card, but it wasn't pretty, and if it was going to be vertically mounted, I wanted it to be pretty, so I'm gonna sell it and use that money to buy this one. Girl math. And here I am plugging in my second Strimer cable directly into my GPU. Once again, just make sure you plug these in firmly. The first time I tried to boot up this PC, it didn't work because one of my cables was just the littlest bit loose, so make sure they're really plugged in. Now this is a little bit of an impromptu decision, but me and Brandon gutted the RGB strips from our old NZXT cases and mounted them with a little bit of 3M tape on the top and bottom of this case because they just fit so perfectly. And since the RGB strips are also NZXT, they plug in just like a fan. Now I knew these ugly red arrows on the side of my graphics card were gonna drive me insane, so I used the plastic covers as a little pattern to draw out some circles on some black vinyl I had left over from an old craft and just make some little sticker covers for the side of my graphics card. And I just think it makes it look so much cleaner and nicer and, I don't know, less ugly. For content purposes, I really am concerned with the aesthetics of the PC. I know it seems a little convoluted, but I also think this is a great segue to the next portion of our video, which is accessories. So let's flash back to the week before I built this PC.
Hello everyone, it's Editing Zoe. Don't make fun of how I look. I am sick. You guys can't say I'm not committed because I'm working while I'm sick. As you guys can see here, the PC case is in my possession. I have the majority of my components, but you know what I don't have? A couple fans and my motherboard. Pretty integral to building a PC if you ask me. So I am in this limbo period where I have the majority of my components and my case. So I figured while I'm in this limbo period, I might as well kill 2 birds, 1 stone and eat my dessert first. Let's accessorize. I said in the workshop section that I bought some pink electrical tape and pink medical tape. I think it's time that I show you guys what I'm using that pink electrical tape and medical tape for. So this will be at the end of the video, but know that this is before I've even built the PC. So a little time inception there. So when I lived in my parents' house, I used this exact pink medical
medical tape to outline my black Samsung monitors. I could not tell you guys what monitors these are in particular. And also recently I've been sent this Divoom Pixel monitor that I love dearly. I just kind of want to pink out the borders of both of them. So off camera, I'm going to get these taken down and unplugged and ready to be taped up. Everything is down and ready to work on. I'm going to give everything a little alcohol wipe before we put the tape down, just to make sure that there's no oils from our fingers on it. That would deter the tape from wanting to stick on it. I feel like this accessory is pretty self-explanatory. Just kind of stick the tape on there. My advice to everyone is do not stretch the electrical tape because it will shrink back in the future. I had that problem with my monitors where I stretched it my hardest to try to get a really straight line, and then the next day it all shrunk back to its original size. So don't do that. But yeah, you just slowly work your way out and then you trim off the excess. This is it finished up. Sorry, it was really hard to film while working on it because you have to take it really slowly. Take your time. I recommend when you're rolling it out, keep it on the spool and roll very slowly. Do not pull too hard, and just make sure you're lining it up really nicely. And we did the same for my two monitors. We're gonna get them on this monitor stand and back up on my desk. So it is a day later because I was tired and fell asleep. But here's the final product with the electrical tape on my monitors and on the Divoom Pixel monitor. I just feel like the pink looks so much cleaner and blends into my Sourpuss shower curtain background I got going on. I don't know. Don't look at the cable management. I'm literally about to rebuild all PC stuff and rework my cable management. So the cables are ugly right now, but I think these are really cute. Now to explain why I needed this medical tape. I'm no stranger to medical tape. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, so a lot of my joints need medical tape to keep them in place because it's a connective tissue disorder. It makes me really easy to dislocate. Medical tape is super flexible and it only adheres to itself. So in my little brain, I was thinking, moving down to my CPU cooler here, these tubes, they make cable management covers that you could put over these tubes, but they don't really make them in pink. And when they do make them in pink, they aren't openable. They need to be used for a cable that like has an open side. This doesn't have an open side because it's connected. So I figured flexible, sticks to itself, won't adhere to the thing underneath. Why not give it a shot? Let's try to wrap these tubes with this medical tape. And just prior to me wrapping it, I wanted to lay it in the configuration it's going to sit in the PC. Since we're top mounting these fans, the CPU processor chip will be down here and the tubes are going to go up. So I'm going to try to hide the little seam of where I wrap the medical tape on the back of this so it's not super visible from the outside of the case, if that makes sense. So just kind of lay it out how it's going to sit inside of your PC before wrapping it, so you could be mindful of where that seam's going to sit. As you can see, I'm kind of just slowly wrapping and tucking the medical tape into a casing around the tubing, and any lumps or the seam itself, I'm just going to twist around to hide behind the cable. And I'm really actually enjoying the texture that the medical tape is giving to the tubing because it makes it kind of look stock, like it actually came that way, which is pretty cool. But my key is just take your time with this because you can get a little lumpy, but worst case scenario, you just pull it off and restart. So just take your time like we did the monitors. Brandon helped me off screen finish wrapping up, but here we are. Pink tubes. Isn't that so cute? For safekeeping, since I don't have all my PC stuff, I'm just gonna put it back in the box until it's time to build the PC. We will put that in when the rest of my PC stuff comes. Flashing back forward to present time and 2 hours of cable management later, we are zip tied, cleaned up, ready to put the back and top panels back on our PC and see if she posts. And now for the moment of anticipation, let's try this out. It's looking good. It's looking very rainbow right now, but it's looking good. What? That is so sick. I'll never forget that super fun hour of setting up Windows, installing software, and updating drivers, but I'll save you guys that fun. And now for the reveal we've all been waiting for. Voila. she's gorgeous. The built-in display is completely touchscreen and fully customizable. I really like the widgets that you can add. I have like the weather, whatever I'm listening to, calculators, emojis. My PC matches the vibe of my room so well. It's absolutely gorgeous. Looking inside, you can kind of see what I mean when I say that the LCD screen on the CPU cooler doesn't take up the entirety of the screen, which kind of sucks, but they make clip-on extensions that fill out the entire screen, and honestly, I might upgrade to that in the future. I'm absolutely enamored with how this build turned out, especially my custom fan covers I made with Brandon, and this is where if you are interested in purchasing fan covers, you should listen up. They will be available on my website www.vampiredoll.com. There is a 4 instead of an A, and I will have 2 different color variations. They will come in black and white, in sizes for 140 and 120 millimeter fans in case you have bigger fans than I do, and they will also come in the variation of hollow hearts or filled hearts. Personally, I have the hollow hearts because my fans light up in the middle, but not everybody's fans light up in the middle like mine, so I wanted to give you guys the option of filled hearts as well. They're going to be priced at $10 a fan cover on my website, but unfortunately as of right now they're only going to be US shipping because I can't assure their safety being shipped overseas, that they'll make it to you safely, let alone shipping overseas is very expensive and I need to figure out a better way to do it. So as of right now, I do apologize, they're US only, but hopefully in the near future I can figure out overseas shipping.
And that kind of concludes this dream PC build of mine. Thank you so much again, HYTE brand, for sending me your Y70 Touch case. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It turned out phenomenal, a million times better than I thought it would have turned out originally. And I'm actually surprised with how smoothly this build went for being my first build. Linked down in the description will be a bunch of resources I personally used that helped me build this PC and write my notes section. So those resources like Linus tech tip videos will be linked down in the description, along with HYTE brand's Instagram page. So if you guys want to get a case to match me, by all means, they will be linked down in the description. And if you guys want more from me in specific, all of my socials will be linked in the description as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, maybe learned something new, and I hope to see you guys next time. Love you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.